got two things that are happening this week. On Saturday at St. Amelia's Church, which is right up in the Pine Oracle area, PCIC is holding a conversation about Prop 123, which is coming up. And so I invite you to be part of that. It's in your bulletin. Also on Sunday, PCIC is hosting a wonderful celebration. And I saw Art earlier. I don't know where he's at. Right there. Oh, we're celebrating you, Art. And so if you'd like to come celebrate that he's at least 26 years old, because this is the 26th anniversary. That's at Most Holy Trinity Parish. That's over on the west side. We'd love to have you there. The information about both those events are in your bulletin. What seems like yesterday, but was actually almost 4 years ago, I was an 18-year-old sitting in my dorm room at East Texas State University in Commerce, Texas. And it was a little teeny room about the size of this area up here, but not nearly as nicely furnished as what this is. And somebody rushed into my room, knocking on the door, saying, hey, there's somebody down here who wants to talk to you on the phone. It was my mom. Now, she lived way down south of Texas. I made the voyage up to North Texas on a voyage of adventure. And so why was she calling me? Well, and it was because a few months before, I filled out a bunch of papers and sent them in, and she was calling me with the announcement of what was to come of those papers. For they were an application, essentially, to go on this wonderful adventure. I was a Mormon at the time, and that was their mission papers. They were saying where I was going to go on my mission. And it was a little scary to me all of a sudden because, you see, I've gotten used to my little dorm room. I've gotten used to my life up there by myself. I had finals to finish. I was doing really well in school, and that was coming up, and these papers said that in 3.5 months I was going to go to Argentina. I'd never been in Argentina. I didn't know the town where I was going was called Rosario. I didn't even know where it was. I didn't even know anything about it. In fact, when my mom told me about this, I wrote down Rosario. I didn't speak Spanish. How am I supposed to go down there? I didn't like wearing white shirts and ties. I like jeans and a t-shirt. I had a girlfriend, and she didn't get to come along. And there's not many girlfriends I had that actually liked me. And all those things stand in the way of willingness, don't they? But don't you have that type of thing? Something that calls you forward, but that also presents some things that challenge your willingness. Things that challenge your thoughts about whether you want to or can do it. I think on a regular basis, that's what invades our life. We have these ideals or these goals of what we should or could be, and yet we find that we can't be it easily. The Japanese have a system called Ikigai that talks about how what we're supposed to become. And it's a series of 4 interlocking circles. The first is that which you love. Right? And it interlocks with what the world needs and what you can be paid for, and then what you're good at. And all those circles can be brought together so that in the middle you can find that sweet spot of Ikigai, where we are fulfilled in most ways. And how many rest in that spot all day long, every day? How many instead find that you're dragged towards one or another of those circles, one of those edges very easily, and you're trying to figure out, how do I become what I could become? How do I find that sweet spot, that intersection of all those things? And it's not simple to do. And so we go through these times of non-alignment as we try to figure out this spiritual life in the midst of everything else that's there. Which is the message of our little scripture. It's these disciples that are sitting together while still being apart in so many ways. Because all that had happened to them in the days leading up to this moment that they're sitting in that upper room had caused their life to be completely overturned. And they were trying to figure out, what's it mean? What can I be? What do I do now with this message that I've heard, but all these things that I've gone through? How do I fit all this together and find that sweet spot? What do I do with the non-alignment of these things? Day after Easter, last Monday, there I'm sitting in my house. I get up saying, oh, glad that's all over. You know what I'm talking about. But we're on that nice celebratory space of okay, he is risen. Everything's joyful, and all of a sudden my friend Michelle calls us up. I've known Michelle almost as long as I've known my wife because they lived across from each other in an apartment complex back when I met Joni. And her dad had died. And suddenly in the midst of new life, I had to face death. In the midst of joy going forward, I had to face her grief. She's asking me to do that service, and it's like, oh, I got stuff to do and be, and I was going to try to rest some this week. But isn't that what happens in your life? Somehow in the midst of all this stuff you're trying to do and be, all this stuff, this non-alignment, marches in. So as those disciples sat in that upper room, dealing with all the stuff of their life, Jesus came in, and he spoke two promises. The first, he had to speak twice. You know why? Because we don't quite believe it easily. That promise was, peace be with you. And we don't believe it because it feels like there's a lot of not peace around us and in us, right? But he spoke that, and he spoke it twice to be able to remind them that peace is still possible. And that's part of what we do when we come together. You know that greeting time that we have, which I always thought was just, I'm saying hi to my friends. You know what it's called liturgically? The passing of the peace. You know why it is? It's because I need you sometimes to remind me that peace happens. Because Michelle's dad dies. And I don't quite believe it in that moment. And so we pass that peace to each other. We remind each other that it's possible when it doesn't feel possible. And so we're going to take a little bit of time to do that. I want someone to raise their hand and tell something that's not quite peaceful. It can be a big thing, it can be a little thing. And we're all going to look at that person and say, peace be with you. So I get to be first. I talked to you about Michelle, and so I need you to remind me that peace is possible. So, peace be with you. Thank you. What else is unpeaceful about your life? Where is it that something is invaded?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Peace be with you. And with him as well.
Jim, at work, I have a woman that works here, and we joke around sometimes, and I went over the line, I guess, and she called me a racist. And I didn't handle that very well, and I swapped her on the butt with a contract, for which she went to the manager and reported me. Was it sexual abuse, I guess, whatever. Harassment, thank you, sexual harassment. And I've had real difficulty with that, and I'm going to write her a note, profoundly apologizing because what I did wasn't right. But it's hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel conflicted about it. I know I shouldn't.
And so we speak, peace be with you. And with her. What else? Yes.
My mother is 93 as of yesterday, and we just moved her to assisted living near my sister in California, and we're all grieving.
Yeah, that's a lot of unsettledness, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all so much change and,
Yes.
and so much sorrow for her. She fell 4 times and broke 2 ribs.
Yes.
And it was time get extra help.
Yeah.
And so we're sad.
Yes,
But we
absolutely.
rejoice in her 93 years.
Sure.
It's conflicting.
Peace be with you.
And with her.
What else? Yes.
I have a dear friend that I taught high school with, and her husband is also a good friend. And he went in for routine shoulder surgery, and they found out that he has acute leukemia, Lewinsky leukemia. And he's now in the hospital facing 21 days of chemo and then some stem cell transplant.
Peace be with you. Illness. Peace be with you. Robbie?
My younger brother fell 15 times in 9 days. And he's overstayed release now in a home in Newport.
Peace be with you. And we speak this peace because we all need to be reminded on a regular basis, because things will always invade. And one of the hardest things about that invasion of that non-peace and all that stuff that happens, and it's not always just bad stuff, sometimes it's good stuff that just gets in the way and draws us out of the center. It makes us doubt and worry and fear. And it's sometimes very hard to see how God is working, or even to doubt if God is working in that moment. Is God present or not present? All those moments make it so that our brains become fuzzy and we sit like those disciples, not quite sure, hoping that it might be true, but not quite sure. And so the second thing that Jesus said to those disciples is, receive the Spirit. And he breathed on them. Remind them that God was still present. To remind them that God was not far away, but was right there among them. For when you face that death, that division, that struggle, those obstacles, it's very often hard to find the presence, either within or around you. And so he spoke the truth of life happening in that moment. In every breath, God is present. Daniel Charles Damon said it this way: on a page of my heart, God is writing a love song of freedom and welcome, acceptance and hope. On a page of my heart, God is writing a love song of faithfulness, passion, and joy. See, that's what we do in this space, is we try to help each other to hear what God is writing inside of us. And it's not simple for any of us because of the stuff that's there, but here we try to help it be more true and easier to find. I believe that the gift of St. Francis is that you help God become real for each other again. That here in this group of people, you've made the very important choice to reach out and allow the folks to re-find the divine there present. And you know why that's so hard, especially for a lot of people that are here, is because there's been good churches, or they thought they were good, that have beaten and battered. Good church people announcing God, but not acting like God. And here you've allowed a space where people can rediscover that connection too. Rediscover how to live out that connection. I've come to a place that's closer to Ikigai for me because of who you are. I've been able to find that center spot better. I found home here at St. Francis. So why are you here? What brought you here? who's spoken to your life in just the right way to invite you to be part of who we are. I think St. Francis has always been a place where peace and spirit have been breathed into us again and again, where we've chosen to speak those words and that presence in that moment. But I think one of the best things about St. Francis is it's never been about just us. We take care of each other, but we use this time to help us to be about more than just us. About being welcoming, about helping people who walk into that door for the first time, helping them find a space here. How many loved it when you walked through there, in whatever scared way you did, in whatever fearful, challenging thing you were going through, you found a space where you could sit and rest and become. That's what we're supposed to do here. That's what you have done for years right here. So that people could hear a truth that was being hidden behind whatever other messages were there in their life. You spoke a truth of a God present in that moment and in that person. Because God is faithful even when we're not. Even when we speak those other messages that divide us, even when we speak those other messages of non-love and non-peace, God is faithful in those moments. God forever hopes for the best for all of us. And what you speak here at St. Francis so well, such a grand message is that God will always be there. But when Jesus blows out that breath of spirit and of peace, and it rests in you, when God speaks that, the funniest thing happens. Suddenly the call comes as well. Because did you notice in between those messages, Jesus said this to his disciples: even as I have been sent, so I am sending you. For when that breath of spirit lies on you, it doesn't just leave you there, does it? It draws you somehow towards something, towards somebody. And it doesn't matter who that buddy is or what that call is. It's important that God is there drawing to someone. So I am sending you, says God, on a regular basis. And it doesn't matter that I understand what that call is, but it matters that you hear it and that you follow it, and that somehow I rest with you in the middle of hearing that. Like our call to awareness said, shake out your qualms. Shake up your dreams. Deepen your roots. Not dawdling, not doubting. Intrepid all the way. Somehow figuring out here how to follow it out there. Because there will always be reasons to dawdle and doubt and fear and not quite want to speak. There will always be that girlfriend that you have to leave for 2 years and that white shirt and tie you have to put on. That will make your heart swell a little bit. And yet, if you go and insert yourself into whatever that is, it becomes a wondrous 2 years where you meet all kinds of new things, all kinds of new people, where you do things you've never done before and maybe never will again. God calls us into that grand adventure of sharing that presence beyond this. This is nice. This is wonderful. But this is not the purpose. The purpose is so that we carry this spirit there so that others can hear and become. Senator Cory Booker said, before you speak to me about your religion, first show it to me in how you treat other people. Before you tell how much you love your God, show me how much you love all God's children. Before you preach to me of your passion for your faith, teach me about it through your compassion for your neighbors. In the end, I'm not as interested in what you have to tell or sell as in how you choose to live and give. You see, this place becomes like God, the ground for our being, as Paul Tillich said. And we rest in this space in order to leap off into wherever it is God is calling us, into those lives. And let me tell you, it's not always the lives that we want to be inserted into. Sometimes it's the one where you go, I'd rather not talk to him. I'd rather not deal with that. I'd rather not be. But God calls us into those spaces so that those folks in those spaces can hear that message of love and peace and spirit as well. And maybe in the process be drawn to this space. And we don't do it in order to grow membership. But if we do it right, membership always grows. Part of this weekend, going up to see Michelle, involved sitting with my friend Andy. Andy and I have known each other for a long time. We met in the kitchen at a university that shall remain nameless. It was in the sky boxes in that kitchen, and we were prepping all the food to be able to get out to the sky boxes. Right? And he was my captain, I was his expediter, and we talked a lot there, and he knew that I went to church every weekend that the Cardinals weren't playing. And there we were doing all that stuff together, and he knew who I was, and I knew who he was, and he never came to church with me. Right? Because we were in different spaces, but he always knew who I was. And so when he needed to get married to Karen, he asked me if I would do that wedding. It was my very first wedding ever. And I got to sit there with them in that precious moment. And as we sat this weekend, I got to sit and talk with him, and he was in a wonderful space. But it was completely different from even that wedding day, where I was there, but he still didn't go to church. God still wasn't present in his life in the way I wanted it. Until one day, I was down in Newman, he's living up in North Phoenix, and he calls me up and said, John, I just need your help. Dozer, their bulldog, is about to die. And he just needed somebody to pray with him. So I'll be up there in 4 hours. Can you just call someone? So I called my friend Louis. Louis is a pastor at Lakeview Church out in Sun City. And Louis said, I'll be right over. He went over, he sat with Andy. And he just rested with him and Karen and just was there and present. And almost every single week, every single Sunday since then, Andy and Karen have been at Lakeview Church. Because suddenly they found a reason to be able to be in that body. They found some reason why that space was important enough to them, more important than whatever had kept them away for the decades that I'd known Andy. That's our job, is to be there present in whatever way we can, in some marvelous ways, to help them to discover the presence of God. Life can only become what we dream if we become the expression of the dream we desire to live. Don't wait. Become a transformative force for God. Isn't that a wonderful word? And Mordecai said that. But that's what we remember in this sacrament. We remember to see something more than what seems to be present, to become something more. In broken bread, we found God present. In a little drop of juice, we find something beyond what we have been. We discover what we can be. Will our servers please come forward?